Right. It's difficult because uh, sometimes you hear something and you don't even know that you should check it out. But yeah, you should try to authenticate what you can. Like I said, a lot of the dates were wrong. There were numbers, there were amounts that were wrong, and I mean I know that because I'm in the business. But the average person out there doesn't know that. All I will say though is what they're trying to get across is what's happening. Now, is there a failure? Is there only well, the impact is that's part of the Japanese carry trade. And the carry trade is what was used to reflate the entire system. They've, hundreds of billions, if not several trillion, have been funded through the carry trade. And the problem with that is you're borrowing in yen, so you're 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 borrowing in yen, and the cost to pay that back is increasing because the interest rate's going up, and so is the yen itself. So that is part of what has kicked all this off. Is that there's fear that that carry trade is going to break, and that funding is going to be reversed. Uh, you're seeing big volatility in the metals finally after all these years because the supplies have dwindled. There was supply fears earlier in the 2025 about gold, and obviously the last quarter, all you hear is new sources of demand, and that's coupled with supply problems such as Japan or such as China is not going to be shipping or exporting silver after January 1st. So that tightens a market that's already extremely tight. Get used to the volatility, folks, because what you're seeing now is only going to get larger. We're going to have more and more and more volatility until such day that the paper markets become irrelevant. And you will still see volatility after that, but in the physical markets, it's that what you're watching here is the paper markets on a road to irrelevance. Yeah, it's not just exchanges, it's sovereign treasury, sovereign central banks that are stepping up, primarily buying gold, although I believe India and China are both buying silver. But it just makes sense what they're doing is onboarding gold onto their balance sheet because we live in a system that is going into bankruptcy, going into insolvency. And these central banks are worried if they hold too many dollars and no gold, and there's a dollar problem, a credit problem in the United States, and the dollar gets smoked as far as purchasing power, then where does that central bank stand if they don't have gold? So what they're doing is they're unloading gold that will rise in value to fill up the holes, if you will, that are created by a dollar devaluation.
Amid growing distrust in fiat currencies, sovereign institutions are stockpiling gold to safeguard their balance sheets. Nations like India, China, and others are strategically acquiring silver and gold to protect against potential dollar devaluation or credit crises. Historical examples show that countries with no physical reserves are vulnerable to geopolitical and financial restrictions, including SWIFT system blocks. Gold becomes universal money, immune to default, inaccessible markets, or political maneuvering. Central banks are hedging against systemic risk, ensuring they hold assets that remain outside the influence of unstable currency systems, preparing for a future where trust in traditional finance may erode.
Right, they're buying gold. Yeah, they're buying gold and having it delivered to them, to their country. In the past, what have we seen? We saw 4 years ago, 5 years ago, $1 billion, which is now well more than $2 billion, of Venezuelan gold was basically sequestered by the LBMA, by London. We saw in October 2023, we saw the Biden administration sequestered over $300 billion of Russian U.S. treasuries that they held. The only problem is they didn't really hold them. I mean, they got shut off from that. So countries are seeing that they're being attacked and shut off in the SWIFT system. So their way around that is to buy the universal money, and I say money, not currency, gold, that cannot default. It can't bankrupt. If it's in your possession or in a country's possession, they can't be shut off from the world trade because they have capital. Whereas if they are just in a SWIFT system and have no gold whatsoever, they can be shut off. And I caution listeners that this is exactly what's going to happen when we go to central bank digital currency. If you say the things you and I talk about, Dunnigan, and we're in a central bank digital currency system, you're going to be shut up. There's no beans and tortillas for you tonight. Well, that all has to do with trust. And I mean, we can get into that if you want. The bottom line is, without trust, without confidence, the credit systems will unravel. They won't work. Credit won't be forthcoming. And that's something I've talked about for many years now, that this would be a credit event in the end. And when credit breaks, everything stops. Just commenting on that Australian situation, they've got that problem because they gave up their guns. We have a Second Amendment here in the United States, and if somebody told me I could only go in my backyard, you could bet within 5 minutes I'd go take a piss in my front yard. For gold, it looks like the availability is fine. And this is just for retail, I'm not talking institutional trades. Silver, there is tightness, but it looks, we do have pretty much most products. You can see amongst the other dealers, premiums have definitely jumped in the last week to 10 days. And it started a week ago, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. And you saw some of the bigger dealers raise their premiums. And it's my view, and I mean, I don't have anything to back this up, factually with, but it's my opinion, that these dealers are thinking to themselves, because I've thought the same thing, that supply is going to evaporate. We saw that in April of 2023, where we went into a weekend on a Friday, the 3 banks closed, and by Monday there was nothing to be had. We could only take orders with 6-week projected delivery times. Now, I can tell you that delivery times have expanded now just because there are so many orders coming in, but at this point the supply still is available, and like I said, premiums have definitely turned and are moving higher.
Retail availability of silver is increasingly constrained. Dealers are raising premiums due to surging demand and uncertain deliveries. Unlike gold, silver's industrial applications in electronics, solar energy, and automotive manufacturing magnify its scarcity. Historical trends, like the April 2023 sell-offs, demonstrate how rapidly physical inventory can vanish. When demand outpaces supply, investors face a critical decision: acquire now or risk missing the market entirely. This dynamic drives both price and anxiety, with buyers rushing to secure physical assets. Premiums on silver coins and bars are climbing, reflecting the market's recognition that tangible metals may soon eclipse paper contracts in both value and accessibility.
Well, I think I would just say it's the smell of blood in the water. People are understanding that supply is tight. People are understanding that demand has definitely overwhelmed supply. So they know the supply-demand situation, and people are, when you tell a human being that they can't have something, they want it even more. And that's what's happening, is that there's fear out there that there's not going to be product. And I've also said this for many years. When this thing goes down, you're either in precious metals or you're out. If you're out, you're not going to be afforded the chance to stack and put a position together, because none will be available for sale for whatever amount of fiat you want to pay, Well, yeah, obviously dealers are worried. Am I going to get my shipment? Am I going to get the whole shipment? Only part of the shipment? I mean, it's pretty hard to take future orders against a shipment that you don't know is going to be a full shipment or even if it's going to arrive. So, dealers are pulling back, raising the premiums and thinking, okay, if we don't get any more, at least we're going to get paid on what we're selling now. Well, I mean, done again up until a week and a half ago, if you noticed, all the dealers were really fighting on price. It was all the dealers, especially in silver, all the dealers were marking down the premiums to the point where they were very, very skinny trades for the dealers. That has turned 180 degrees. And it's not surprising because, dealers are not machines. Dealers are people too. Oh, and let me make one other, let me just mention one other thing. A lot of people know that I did a very large trade a little over 3 years ago. It was a $50 million trade that cleaned up every Silver Eagle, every bag of junk, and pretty much every single pre-1933 gold, Liberty, or St. Gaudens. And that was just with $50 million. That was 3.5 years ago. That was before the SVB bank problems, before that cleared the shelves. What I'm getting at is if a $50 million order came in today, and that is a paltry amount of money. Understand that in today's world, $50 million is nothing. But if you had a $50 million trade and said, I want to buy every U.S. Silver coin and every U.S. Pre-1933 coin, gold coin, I don't think that order could be done today. I think it would wipe the shelves clean, and it would probably affect a lot more than what it did 3 years ago, because the supply and demand equation now is just so razor thin.
Understanding the distinction between paper and physical silver is crucial. While paper contracts represent claims to metal, physical silver is irreplaceable, immune to defaults, and must be delivered to hold true value. Investors are increasingly wary of paper exposure during market stress, turning to physical assets for long-term security. Thoughtful strategy is key. Staggered purchases, planned ratios of silver to gold, and careful allocation mitigate risk and emotional decision-making. This disciplined approach ensures investors don't chase short-term spikes, but rather build positions that withstand volatility, securing both wealth preservation and optionality for future market developments.
Yeah, it's too late at that point. And if you're 1 second too late, it's the rest of your life. I mean, if you miss the window to be sitting on some gold and silver when the paper system collapses, that's the rest of your life. There's no way for you to recoup. You either protect your capital now or you're not going to have any capital. Yeah, I posted a couple of those AI videos couple weeks before Christmas and then the week before Christmas. They're putting it out on, there's got to be 50 different channels. And they're actually, just flooding the space. And when I posted the both of those videos, I cautioned readers that the logic is correct, but a lot of the numbers, a lot of the dates are not correct. One of the big not correct numbers was the amount of the amount of registered inventory on COMEX. He said was 41 million ounces. And I think the real number was 107 or 115 million ounces. So while they're talking about the lack of silver to deliver, that number was not factual. That number was wrong. Some of the dates are wrong. 2 days ago, some people sent me one of the latest Asian guy videos that came out, and they said, this is you. I'm like, what do you mean this is you? They said, well, you're mentioned like 3 or 4 times. Bill Holter says. So I watched the interview, and all the words that came out of the bot's mouth or the Asian guy's mouth, all of those words, every one of them have already come out of my mouth. I watched it twice. I didn't see anything in there that I disagree with because it was from me. Does it mean it's right? I hope so. I think so. Um, but I think, my logic is sound. We are where we are now. Uh, and I talked about these things 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. I talk about failure to deliver. I talk about societal breakdown, the rule of law. I mean, you name it. I've talked about all these things over time. And I posted this on my website, and I'm going to leave it up top of my website probably for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month. I don't know. Simply because it is 100% my thought process, 100% my logic, given in a calm manner and easy to understand, but it wraps up pretty much everything. I mean, there's others, side issues, but it wraps up the main issues the way I see them. So if you watch, if you go to my website and you watch that video, Bill Holter said that.
Active management of silver and gold ratios enhances portfolio resilience. With silver outperforming gold recently, a staged conversion strategy is advised. Investors can sell in tranches as ratios decline, gradually shifting from silver to gold while avoiding emotional panic. For example, a 4-step swap strategy can gradually achieve a target allocation like 70% gold, 30% silver. This method mitigates the risk of entering or exiting positions at extreme prices. Planning ahead ensures you act on logic rather than market pressure. By establishing ratios and executing systematically, investors maintain control over their exposure, navigating scarcity and volatility without succumbing to fear or impulsive decisions.
Right. It's difficult because sometimes you hear something and you don't even know that you should check it out. But yeah, you should try to authenticate what you can. Like I said, a lot of the dates were wrong. There were numbers, there were amounts that were wrong. And I mean, I know that because I'm in the business, but the average person out there doesn't know that. All I will say, though, is what they're trying to get across is what's happening. Now, is there a failure? Is there only 41 million ounces, and is there going to be a failure to deliver this month? No, there's more than 41 million ounces. There still may be a failure to deliver, but what they're pointing out are the problems. They're making some of the problems bigger than they really are, but collectively, their logic is spot on. Collectively, the logic of a failure to deliver it's 100%. Well, first off, I do want to say that the worst time to make a decision is when you're under duress. When things are crazy and you've got to make a decision, hopefully you've thought about that decision ahead of time. For instance, and I did want to say about the AI guy that when there's a headline that says sell your silver, they're talking about paper silver. They're not talking about physical silver. So they are making a definitive line between paper silver and physical silver. So, and I got some of the same calls you got done again. Oh my God, the guy says sell everything. It's going to zero. Well, yeah, the paper contracts could very well go to zero, but the metal can't. As far as let's use a real-time decision to make. And I've had 2 or 3 calls just this morning on it. People are calling, when should I start thinking about swapping some of my silver into gold? Well, you want to think about that ahead of time. I've recommended, and it won't be wrong, but it certainly won't be right. I've recommended that people do it in tranches. You pick a number that you think that the ratio is going to go down to. Do you think it's going to bottom out at 40? You think it's going to bottom out at 30, 20? I think we're going to end up at 2025. That's just my gut feel. Uh, and I've told people, figure out what you want as your final gold to silver ratio. And you should be much, much heavier in silver right now. And as that ratio, it's now 55 to 1, down from 120 to 1. So from that point, silver has doubled the performance of gold. Now, when we get under 50, do you want to sell a tranche? I recommend you do 4 tranches. My thought process is at 50, you sell a tranche and you buy gold. At 40 to 1, you sell another tranche and you buy gold. At 30, you do one more quarter tranche. And then the last one you do by your gut. And that should get you very close to what you want to be. You want to be 80% gold, 20% silver, 70-30, 90-10, whatever your decision is. Do that math and figure out if you sell, if you sell a quarter and a quarter and a quarter, 4 quarters, then you're going to get to your number. But you've already thought about it ahead of time. You're not freaking out, oh my God, silver's up $13 today. Should I buy it or should I sell it? Because those are the things that are going to be going through your mind. You've already thought about it. You've already made your plan to do a swap from silver to gold at these ratio numbers. Just follow through. And when I said, and I certainly won't be right, I'm not going to pick the bottom number. There's no way, because I'm doing it in 4 tranches. But I'm certainly not going to get beat and totally miss it. So do your thought process ahead of time, and don't make big decisions while you're under duress.
The metals market is entering a period where trust in credit and fiat systems is increasingly fragile. Political, monetary, and industrial pressures reinforce the necessity of holding physical assets. Historical precedents, including prior bull markets and global crises, suggest this cycle may amplify traditional trends. Investors who proactively secure metals position themselves ahead of potential systemic disruptions. Beyond mere speculation, silver and gold serve as tangible insurance against currency debasement, geopolitical risk, and supply chain shocks. Preparedness, strategy, and patience are critical. Those who plan now can avoid the permanent disadvantage of entering the market too late, securing lasting capital protection.